20, 30, 10.
Australia is embarking on procedures to Sydney's parallel runways that will provide independent visual approaches simultaneously to both runways. This means two aircraft flying the final approach side by side, approximately 1 kilometre apart, or 1,037 metres to be exact. Additionally, radar separation is not possible and directed traffic will not be issued. Independent visual approaches to Sydney's parallel runways is safe and simple. However, a thorough understanding of the rules and procedures is vital. Please, now pay attention as we explain in more detail. Okay, so here we are about 130 miles north of Sydney Airport in controlled airspace, about to commence our descent, tracking by the star. Soon we'll transfer to Sydney approach. Now let's consider a few things well before our arrival. Remember, until the parallel approach radar monitor is in operation into Sydney, simultaneous or independent approaches will only be allowed in visual conditions. Based on today's weather, that's more than likely. The agents will now confirm if this is the case.
Sydney Terminal Information, Bravo. Runway 16 left and right for departures and arrivals. Parallel runway operations in progress. Expect independent visual approach. Independent departures in progress. Wind 160 degrees, 5 knots. QNH 1014. Temperature 17. Cav OK. On first contact with Sydney ground or approach, notify receipt of Bravo.
When contacting Sydney approach, you may be told to expect an independent visual approach. Now, with the ATIS confirming that parallel runway operations are in progress and to expect an independent visual approach, you may now know that there could well be another aircraft approaching the other parallel runway simultaneously.
Sydney approach Qantas 50 on descent to 8,000, information Bravo.
Qantas 50 approach, good morning, descend to 5,000, runway 16 right, localiser frequency 1098.5.
Expect independent visual approach 32 miles to run.
Qantas 50, 5,000.
There are 2 points to remember now. The ATIS will advise if parallel runway operations are in progress, and when contacting Sydney approach, you may be told to expect an independent visual approach.
Qantas 50, turn right heading 180 to intercept the 16 right localiser.
Qantas 50, right heading 180.
Qantas 50, contact director 125.3.
Qantas 50. Qantas 50 on descent to 5,000, visual.
Qantas 50, director, descend to 3,000. Report established on the 16 right localiser.
Qantas 50, 3,000.
So, what's director? It's a new approach control position whose specific function will be sequencing aircraft onto final, using new standards and procedures applicable to parallel runways. On transfer to the director, the pilot must initiate a report when visual and also when the runway is in sight. Failing to report the runway in sight by 3 nautical miles from the adjacent centreline may result in being turned away from final. It's imperative, with the likelihood of another aircraft approaching the adjacent runway, that you look for the runway early and that you can maintain it in sight. If you lose sight of the runway after advising that you had the runway in sight, you must advise ATC immediately. Remember, as this procedure will also be used at night, visually acquiring the runway is going to be more difficult.
Qantas 50, 3,000. Established runway 16 right localiser.
Qantas 50, make visual approach straight in, runway 16 right.
Qantas 50.
November Charlie, we have 16 runway left inside. Fox November Charlie. Fox November Charlie, turn left heading 180, join final runway 16 left. From that heading, make visual approach. November Charlie, left heading 180.
Qantas 50, runway 16 right, inside.
Qantas 50, roger, contact tower 120.5 at 4 miles.
Qantas 50.
Remember, from the point at which you are cleared for a visual approach, you are responsible for maintaining the necessary separation from the aircraft on the adjacent approach in the event it deviates from the centre line.
Sydney Tower, Qantas 50, established ILS, runway 16 right.
You must remain on the director frequency until instructed to call the tower, or, in the event of no instruction given, you must transfer to the tower when established on final and within 4 miles. See, it works well. Just remember to vacate the runway as soon as possible after landing. Having just considered the approach from a pilot's point of view, how about for one moment we consider it from a controller's point of view, as we take a look at what determines the operational requirements laid down in the AIP prior to becoming established on a visual approach. Now, there's an approach taking place at the moment where Ken, one of the approach controllers, is going to show us exactly what's happening. G'day, Ken.
G'day, Paul. Pull up a chair.
Thank you. Okay, so what's going on here?
Well, we've got a 737 to the north. He's approaching Sydney at 260 knots. And we have a Super King Air to the east. He's approaching at about 220 knots. And both aircraft are expecting an independent visual approach, and that information has been provided on the Aegis.
Right.
Now, the 737 to the north has been instructed to intercept the 16 right localiser, and the King Air is maintaining its last assigned heading as we commence their sequencing for the final approach.
Right.
Now, both aircraft have been advised by the ATIS that parallel runway operations are in progress. Therefore, they can both expect that another aircraft will be making a simultaneous visual approach. Now, over and above maintaining our normal separation standard of 1,000 feet vertically, or 3 nautical miles, this aircraft to the east needs to be vectored so that it can intercept its final course at an angle of not greater than 30 degrees.
Okie doke. So Ken, at the moment you're actually maintaining existing separation standards?
Yes, that's right, Paul, but if you give me a few minutes here, we can go down to the simulator and Peter will take you through the new standards and the manner in which they'll be applied.
Oh, great, terrific, thanks very much.
G'day Peter, this is Paul. Can you take us through the new independent visual approach procedures?
Yeah, certainly can. There are 3 possible scenarios under which this procedure can be applied. This is the Sydney radar display. We have Sydney Aerodrome down here with runway 16 right and runway 16 left marked. These lines are the respective runway centre lines, and these markings are 2 miles apart and start from 2 miles from the point of touchdown. Up here is West Pymble, being the initial approach fix for runway 16 right, and approximately here is the initial approach fix for runway 16 left. In this first example, we have 2 aircraft. First aircraft is established on the localiser and the pilot has reported visual. The other aircraft is on a heading to intercept final at an angle not greater than 30 degrees and such that we'll intercept final inside the furthermost initial approach fix. The pilot has reported the runway in sight. Or, in this example, both aircraft are on headings to intercept final at an angle of not greater than 30 degrees. Both aircraft will intercept inside the furthermost initial approach fix, and both pilots have reported the runways in sight. Or finally, in this case, both aircraft are established on their respective localisers and the pilots have reported visual, and the first aircraft is established inside the furthermost initial approach fix.
So that's it?
Yes, unless of course one aircraft severely deviates from centreline, which would mean the other aircraft would have to take the necessary avoiding action by turning away and advising ATC immediately.
And what happens then?
And then we just vector the aircraft for another approach.
Thanks, Peter. Well, that's how the controllers see it. But let's now recap and look at some of the main points for you to remember. Watch for traffic on the adjacent final.
Be sure to look for the runway early.
Visually acquire both runways.
Make sure you cross-check with the localiser.
Don't forget to call visual or runway in sight so the procedure can be applied. Don't overshoot final.
Whilst parallel runway operations are new to us here at Sydney Airport, they're not new throughout the rest of the world. For example, at London, Frankfurt, Los Angeles, San Francisco. They're safe and they're efficient, as long as these procedures are followed.
Well, I guess that just about sums it up. Your AIP supplement should now be read and thoroughly understood prior to operating into Sydney Airport. And remember, it's imperative that pilots are aware of their responsibility to fly accurate headings and turn onto final without overshooting. That's it from me. Happy and safe flying.